Greetings, nerds. This is Scene and Nerd. I'm your host, Sarah Belmont, and with me, as always, is our Mr. Producer, Will Polk. How are you doing tonight, Will?
Doing very well, Sarah. I hope you're doing well, my friend, and happy Star Trek Day.
So, so this is Star Trek Day because anniversary.
Yeah, so on September 8th, 1966, the first episode aired on NBC. So that's
Wow.
why it's Star Trek Day. Even though, if you really want, but technically, if you want to be really like anal about it,
Let's do
September
it.
6th, let's do it. Yeah, so September 6th should be Star Trek Day because it actually aired in Canada first.
Oh,
And yeah,
why?
yeah. Um, yeah, it was just how things that's how just the network did it. But
That's hilarious.
yeah, yeah. But the show did premiere on September 8th, so of course folks are probably seeing all the things on social
Mhm.
today as far as from Paramount, and they did announce do a quick little, since normally we usually try to have a little bit of nerd news, so this will be my nerd news segment for the week. So a couple things. So it's the 59th anniversary. Next
Mhm.
year will be the 60th anniversary. They announced today that the kickoff the 60th anniversary celebration. I think they're going to be Star Trek is going to participate in the Rose Bowl parade in Pasadena.
Mhm.
There's also a new animated show, which is funny. I did a Star Trek uh, commentary
Mhm.
this week on what does Star Trek need to do to feel relevant and stay relevant as we move forward, and especially given that there's old head fans who are just it's funny. They sound like a lot of people did. Like they sounded like my parents did when the Next Generation came out in 1987, when people like complain about Strange New Worlds and Discovery and Lower Decks and all the new Trek that's on Paramount Plus now. But I did a video, check it out, where I do talk about what are my 5 things that I think Star Trek needs to do to remain relevant. And one of the things that came out today that kind of touched on one of the points that I made was
Mhm.
they announced an animated show that's going to be on YouTube that
Mhm.
will be focused on preschool on younger viewers, preschoolers. And one of the things I did talk about was this diversification of the platform. And so this is opening the door for a new generation of fans. And they've done this a little bit too with Star Trek Prodigy that came out a few years ago. But unfortunately, it only has only had 2 seasons before. It was only on Paramount Plus for 1 season. It got canceled. Netflix thankfully picked it up. So there was that. There was also a podcast audio drama that premiered today as well.
Mhm.
It's called Star Trek Con, which is chronicling the period after Captain Kirk uh, Senate's Con to SETI Alpha 5, where well, after he tried to steal the Enterprise after they woke him up from the sleeper ship, and it's chronicling the period before the movie The Wrath of Khan. So the first episode dropped today. Listen to it, really, really good. I really liked it. I'll probably do a little commentary about it later this week. And then let's see. Also, Star Trek is finally getting Legoed. So there is a
Mm.
Star Trek Lego um, venture coming out as well. And so yeah, so those are some of the things that dropped here on Star Trek Day. Of course, obviously it was a little. I think it was sort of like there was there were some cool things that were released, but I think everything really is going to just really lead up to the big 60th anniversary celebrations that will drop next year. So I can only imagine um, what all they have in store. And as far as the original cast, I mean, there's thankfully William Shatner and George Takei and Walter Koenig are still with us, so hopefully they'll be able to make it to next year for the 60th celebration. Speaking of George
Nice.
Takei, he's also in the Star Trek Con audio drama playing Captain Sulu. So
Okay. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah, yeah.
Did you see Huntrix at the VMAs last night?
I did not. I was I was
No,
watching.
I just I
It's football. It's football season.
No, 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 I totally understand, but every
Yeah,
now and then you surprise me when you mention little things like you saw, and I
yeah.
didn't, not like I watched them or
Oh,
anything,
I know. I
but
know.
I
Yeah.
did see the 3 actresses.
Hmm.
They were one of the award announcers,
Huh.
and one of them, in the movie where they're talking, like, introducing each member of Huntrix, and
Hmm.
there's the one who's, like, at the Met Gala in a sleeping bag, like,
Yeah.
wearing a
Yeah.
sleeping bag. Well, one of the actresses, her outfit was very clearly inspired by that.
That's
It's
awesome.
very cool. It was
I
very
have to
cool.
go. Yeah, I'll have to. I'll have to go check out the socials on that to see it. 'Cause I'm sure it's everywhere.
Yeah,
I'm surprised I
yeah.
didn't see it on. I'm surprised I didn't
I
see it
know. Yeah.
on Instagram or this morning when I was like waiting to get my driver's license renewed.
I know, you had all the time in the world
I
today
had all
to
the time in the world. I
randomly
just
see
missed it.
that,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but I wanted to mention that,
Yeah.
it's not like
Cool.
they performed or anything, but, uh, I swear if I hear "Golden" one more time, that song, I just
Yeah.
hear 1 second of it and it'll get stuck in my head.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I did yeah, I had to it's still on my playlist, but I have had to like hit a few other things on the algorithm to like not have it like come up like um e- every time I like turn my Spotify on.
Right, right.
Yeah, yeah.
You have to outsmart
Yeah,
technology. It's
you
so
do.
hard.
Yeah.
But on that topic, because I finally watched Sinners, um, and where I want to start this conversation, because we will get into the movie, but something that I just thought was so interesting was, and this tells me, like, we watch these things when we're supposed to,
Hmm.
because for the last 3 weeks we've been catching up on things that we have missed technically over the last 2 years, mainly movies. And the 3 that we started with, all in very different ways, are, and honestly, in my opinion, the biggest strengths of each of these movies is the music themselves.
Hmm.
Yet they use it so differently that it just struck me as being very fascinating, and just proves that, yes, movie and TV and film, they're visual mediums, but there is something to be said for how things are scored, which in
Yeah.
this case, mark my words, the composer, I'm blanking on his name, who scored Sinners, he's going to get another Oscar.
Oh,
Um,
Ludwig Göransson.
yeah, he
Yeah.
won for Black Panther, right?
I believe so. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
He's prolific. I mean,
Oh yeah.
him, Michael Giacchino. I mean, they yeah. I mean, they're just Hans
Well,
Zimmer. Yeah,
but
yeah. But Ludwig is
yeah,
definitely like yeah,
yeah. So between that, and then what we were just talking about with K-pop Demon Hunters and their use of music to tell a different kind of fable, but the fact that their characters are the singers, and so the story that they were trying to tell had more to do with being that kind of star.
hmm,
And then in between, you have Wicked, which is based on a Broadway play. And we were talking about that last week, about how there is that it can be hard to do, to really bring to life a musical that's made for the stage to the screen. So it's that similarity in 3 very different movies.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But I don't know if when you were rewatching and you were thinking about on what we've been, reflecting on what we've covered over the last few weeks, if you
yeah,
also had kind of like a, "Oh, that's interesting."
yeah, yeah. So so I did. in full disclosure, I did watch Sinners earlier this year when it dropped. But I did have, it's funny because I did not look at the rundown, but I had a similar thought. But when I did look at our rundown, and I saw you had put on there uh, this very, very good point how music was used in these three movies, and and just how they are as far as how it reflects this era and a community that where K-pop Demon Hunters was really like a modern globalized youth culture. Wicked, as you noted, it's a Broadway inspired musical.
Mhm,
Rooted in both classical and modern musical theater. And then
mhm,
Sinners, is that gospel and blues tradition, tied to African American spirituality and folk history, and
mhm.
and it's just one of the things how we just how what we've talked about in the prior two films, and I'm sure we'll talk about tonight. It's just how music shapes it shapes identity, and also just how it can express emotions and power and things like that. Like I think about K-pop Demon Hunters. It was
Mhm.
you know it was becomes music is a art of act of both unity and even rebellion at some points, and how pop culture becomes literally a weapon to be used to defeat evil. As far
Well,
as Huntrix, as far
yeah.
as at least as far as Huntrix taking down, at least that's my perception of it. I'm sure you have some thoughts as well.
No, 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 I agree with you. Like
Yeah.
they tell that story through the perspective of Huntrix. So
Hmm.
like the music, the strength of the fans
Hmm. Yeah.
allows for this protection to occur, making sure the demons don't break further
Yeah.
into the world and to really shield and protect this community that they have. While in Sinners, um, it is more used. Well, it is used like that,
Yeah.
but it also it calls to the vampires. It's the siren
Hmm.
song that attracts them um, to
Hmm.
that place. And honestly, we don't get a lot of detail about why or how, but that's neither here nor there. So it's more of an attraction of the power and the talent,
Yeah.
while Huntrix, it's the defense. So Sinners, it's offense, and then Huntrix, it's defense.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I know
also I
the
think
drill.
yeah, and also center. I know we'll yeah, and I know centers will get into it as more too as well because I think as far as what the vampires, I mean, there's been multiple thought pieces on what they represent and stuff, and I know we'll touch on some of that uh,
Well, go
as far
ahead.
as
I ain't
um
holding you back.
no, no, no. I want no. I want to no. I don't want to jump right to that because there's more. We got to set it all up before we get to that
Oh,
point.
no.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah,
go
but
ahead.
no, I mean, yeah, no, I mean, I think, well, I want to, one last thing on this point about the three movies, and as far as just shaping things, I do want to, I know we talked about Wicked last week, um, and the other thing that I think, as far as maybe a commonality with all three is um, music is that vehicle, for uh, personal transformation for all our lead characters in some form or fashion with a commonality and a common thread through these three films. So that was just to put a bow on that point, with those three films. And to your point, as far as just see watching things, to get watching, it's funny how sometimes things just sort of serendipity where we
Mhm.
can we can pull these types of threads together um with some of the items we discuss here on the podcast. So but yeah, let's do turn to sinners proper, and just just sort of the whole story of uh, Smoke and Stack and the two brothers. And to your so of course they had left their hometown, gone up from 1930 to Mississippi Delta, go up to Chicago, and you do their thing as far as working for the mob and some other stuff. Basically, like take come back home with this grand plan and of setting up the juke joint and some of the lessons learned in the big city, and also getting to the point about now we'll bring up the vampires and what sort of some of the allegory that they were discussing, because one of the things that was brought up when Smoke and Stack were talking to their cousin Sammy, was how Chicago and the South, even though Sammy was talking about Jim Crow not being up there, and Jim Crow laws and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that stuck out with me early in the film was the line how even though they were in Chicago, it was just even though Jim Crow wasn't officially there, it was just they still had the same the thing of white supremacy and stuff was, and was there. It's just there with tall buildings
Mhm.
instead of the visual cues that we got in 1932 Mississippi, where folks are picking cotton and sharecropping, and and how, where I was going to go with the vampires is, you know, it is whenever they do show up at the juke joint late, in mid film, um, and wanted to sing their song, wanted to sing songs and try to fit in and stuff. There are a couple levels to that. One, yeah, I mean, there's obviously they are white, but also in the context of the time, they Irish folks were immigrants, and there was still was a pecking order. And so yeah, they may be a little bit higher than the pecking order than African Americans, but they were even still in the social class of the time. Irish folks were still looked down upon.
Mhm.
So so you know so those were some levels that I did think, what I thought really worked really well with Sinners is, it wasn't just the traditional black and white, you know, yeah, it was there, but there were a lot of subtext and levels to what was going on in this story beyond it being just a horror film.
Mhm. Right. Well, I don't really this to me, it's not a horror film at all.
Yeah, it's not. It's
It
not. I mean,
really
especially on
isn't.
second. Yeah.
We s so last week when we after the show, when we were talking about what movie to cover,
Mhm.
and there was 2, and it we and I asked Will, I'm like, "How scary is Sinners?" Because I don't do horror. I don't do horror. And Will at one point said, "Okay, we won't do it."
I
You
did.
set me up. Like, I was like, "Okay, I'm not." And then, like, the first hour, I'm like, "What the fuck was Will talking about?" I'm so confused here. Like, but I also I knew way too much about this movie going into it.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so a lot of it, I was like, I just and it wasn't like I was waiting for the vampires. No, the story that they tell in the first and arguably the first half of the second act is really engaging, and it does eh, create a in in that time they managed to within a day really get you to understand this community, how it
Mhm.
works, how these people are interwoven together, what the relationships are. And so you build that, and then you introduce that other element that causes a wrinkle in arguably everyone's plans. I mean, even the KKK got screwed over at the end. I mean, thankfully, but still,
Yeah.
like their plan was out the window the moment the vampires showed up. So, but this isn't a horror movie. And you, something that you also said to me last week, you said, well, it's not really scary, but it messes with your head. And Will, I slept like a baby. Nothing messed with my head. Um,
Yeah.
so now you know on the scale of what I can handle horror
Yeah.
wise,
Yeah.
like I'm good with Sinners. The really it gets into what creeps me out the most and what I
Mhm.
really cannot handle is demon possession.
Yeah.
I can't do it. I can't do it. Granted, there are a few exceptions every now and then, but very rare, very rare.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so no, we will never be covering a Conjuring movie because I refuse. I refuse
Yeah.
to watch any of
Yeah.
those. I will,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah. Don't worry. Don't worry. I'm not going to. I'm not going to press to cover a Conjuring movie. And like I said, I knew when I was saying that it would maybe mess with your head. It was more like I said. I know you're. We've had many
yeah,
conversations
yeah,
offline as far as like um horror and all. And yes, there. I didn't know like see, for example, for the traditional vampire elements that did happen in this film, I didn't know if that would be something that would get to you or not. So
right, right,
yeah,
right.
yeah, and
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, and yeah, there were a few jump scares. I mean, a few, but nothing like um,
I didn't jump at all, people.
yeah,
I
no, no.
didn't.
I mean, well, attempted, yeah. I mean, not, yeah. I mean, I guess for me, I will say it even the second time. I think some of the initial flashbacks with Sammy when he like bust in the church at the beginning,
Mm,
sort of the flashbacks to the night before. Um,
mhm.
I will, yeah. I mean, maybe jump scare maybe might not be the right word, but term for it, but
No, there were. There
yeah,
were,
yeah,
like, clear as day, that was Ryan's
yeah,
intention, was to cause
yeah,
a jump scare.
yeah,
Very
yeah,
much this whole snake thing and, how it was edited. I just outsmarted with him because I saw the signs, so I wasn't
yeah,
looking.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, and yeah, and again, I mean, that's the other thing too is upon for me it was the second time watching it. I've definitely knowing what I know about the film.
Mhm,
It was the I was able to dial, when the moments did happen, like when, for example, when the Choctaw Indians, uh, Native Americans came to that house when
mhm.
they were chasing down Remick. I mean,
Yep.
they were like the nice. I was able to really appreciate the details that I wasn't. Obviously, now that I'm familiar with the story, now I can really get immersed in like what else is happening here. So like little things like the ravens flying around and just being a harbinger for death and then just and getting back to our earlier point about the music, it the score blew me away the first time around,
Mhm.
but this time uh, around it was even more so, especially like the scene where when I mean there were two obviously there are two big moments. The one obviously is where Sammy's playing uh the first whenever he gets introduced to the crowd in the juke joint and they have the um moment where they literally go through time um as far as the different style different eras, and he's piercing the veil of time and space and music and everything. That really even more so, seeing all of that and like the some of the other some of the cultural things that I missed in other cultures that I saw the first time around, but really I was like, oh yeah, now I see I saw those a lot more this time around. And
Mm.
then, but the scene, the next one where the young lady that Sammy hooked up with, I forgot her, I can't remember her name.
Erling.
Um, yeah, yeah. But whenever whenever they were beating the dude up in the back,
Hmm.
and it hit me the first when I watched it the first time. It was I it worked then. It even more so this time, as far as just like how the dance, how the beats, how they were beating up the dude, everything just really just the visceral nature of it, and the power of, again, of music, um, to tell a story, and for, where there is a good thing or bad things happening, it really really reflected that. And again, it just really gets to the heart of, like, why Ludwig, as we were saying, is just such a tremendous composer who probably will get nominated again for an Academy Award for this film.
No, he's gonna win.
Yeah, yeah.
He's gonna win. Um, so I like how you brought up probably the most controversial scene in the movie, and
Hmm.
didn't let me talk. But okay.
Sorry. Well,
um,
yeah.
no, the most controversial scene in the movie is that section where Sammy pierces the veil.
Hmm.
And it's controversial not because of the sound, but because of the visuals. And for me, it didn't work. I'm just gonna call a spade a spade. It didn't work visually. Um, it just honestly, that scene took me out.
Hmm.
Like, it didn't pull me in. Sonically, I was, like, there.
Hmm.
Visually, I was like, "What the heck? What this" it just I and I hate to deliver criticism when I can't say, "This is what they should have done." And I don't have that. I don't know how you do that any other way. So even though I'm criticizing it, I also can't say for sure, like, if there was another way to depict what he was trying to, both visually and sonically. Um, so because sonically it worked so much that a part of me just was like, okay, I want to shut my eyes and just
Hmm.
hear it, because I could hear every single change and the melding, and it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Visually, it wasn't matching as gracefully as it was audible.
Hmm.
So,
That's fair.
and that's why that disconnect took me out of it. And from what I understand, I think arguably some of the other audiences, it might have had this similar effect. Um, but
So,
yeah,
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
no,
So,
I mean that was my point.
yeah.
So I'm glad it worked for you and for others, but it really didn't work for me.
So was it like when you saw, like, the hip hop? I mean, what element of
No, right. It
it?
it was all of it. Like,
Yeah.
I understand, like, they bring forward, like, the ghosts of the past and the present,
Mm,
like, or the
mhm,
future, all combined. I just it stuck out too much. Like, I think
mm.
the clothing and arguably the dance styles, like, it just felt, I don't know, it didn't gel the way it should have to really mirror what was going on sonically.
Yeah, I hear that, and as I think, to hearing what you just said there, and thinking about what his goal was, as far as his some of his motivations for, wanting Sammy's voice and Sammy's soul. I think linking those two together, I think, is where as far as, like, that timeless nature of just like, to your point about sound, and the auditory experience of just when you really when a song or something just really just hits your soul. I think that I think that's where, and maybe, like you said, maybe if you just close your eyes and stuff and not watch the visual
Right,
aspects of it. Yeah. So I see
right.
what you're, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I mean, Remic's motivation was clear, and they
yeah.
set it up from the very beginning when you even hear about, like the guillots, I think they call them, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what Sammy is. And
Yeah.
and you can hear it, and they tease it also when he's in the car with Stack,
Mm-hmm.
and he sings Travelin' or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you hear the start, and then it just worked. And maybe what really was irritating is it was working so much, and
Mm-hmm.
then you started to see specifically the ghosts of the future. You're
Mm,
just
yeah.
like, you're like, "Wow, we don't necessarily need." I mean, arguably, there could have been cuts to the future
Yeah.
rather than inserting them in the hall itself,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
or did you even need to show it? Could you just
Mm.
have done it through the
Auditory.
sound, because the sound was
Yeah.
there and the
Yeah.
melding, and then on top of that, I like how they knew they could do that, and so later when it is Remick and he's doing the Irish version of that, which bleeds into a metal section, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's very much like, wow, it takes you on a journey,
Mm-hmm.
um, and and it is powerful. It
Yeah.
is like you don't know, it disconnects you from time and space.
Yeah.
Um, but then when I see people in wearing like 90s outfits and all, I'm just like,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
No,
I'll have to go. Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. I hear you.
yeah.
I agree. I mean, yeah. And probably if I go back and like, because I know we had, whenever my wife and I did did a discussion on it here,
Mhm.
I have to go back and watch because I might have been like you the first time around where it didn't work, or maybe it didn't work for her either, because of what you just said as far as the visual aspect of it. I think that is a very fair point. I mean, I don't think you're wrong,
Right.
with that critique there. Um, and I don't even consider it as criticism. I think it's a very fair critique of that scene.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, it there's not much to criticize in this movie. I mean, it's a good
Yeah,
movie. It's
yeah,
well made. It's well made because it felt so old school,
hmm,
which I loved. I was
yeah,
watching it and I was just like, this reminds me of movies that were made when I was a kid.
yep,
And it just, there's something in the structure of it, and it's also beautiful. The cinematographer on this
yeah.
movie, Oscar nomination,
Yeah.
because like the cotton fields
Oh yeah,
were
yeah.
the I've never seen them look that way. And I've told you this before, when you can pause a movie, and there's plenty of times, specifically in those cotton fields, when you pause the movie and it's like,
Hmm.
well, that's a painting right there.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because the white popped in such a way I've never seen before.
Hmm.
And there, I told you about Landman when I watched it earlier this
Yeah.
year, right? Yeah,
Yeah. You did.
season 2 is coming this fall. But and I talked to you about how it was fascinating to watch because like Texas is huge,
Hmm.
but there's a barrenness there.
Hmm.
And while watching this movie, um, in the deep South in Mississippi, it felt barren,
Hmm.
and it was interesting for me, who I've never been to the South, but I also like view, coming from the biggest state in the US, I know barren landscape. And
Yeah.
so like that barrenness felt there. I think it was more not to capture that landscape, but more so the isolation of the
Yes.
plantation itself.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's that's a awesome point that you just made there. Um, Yeah, yeah, because you're right. I mean, it does such a wonderful like job framing everything. Um,
Mhm.
and as far as the time period, um, and to your point, I mean, it is visually it speaks to what is going on during this time.
Mhm.
Um, better than any exposition could ever do.
Well,
Um,
I think there's a lot of exposition in this movie, but the brilliance of the writing is it doesn't feel like exposition dumps.
yeah,
It feels like natural conversations where
yeah,
pieces of information and
yeah,
motivations are being explained very
yeah,
plainly.
yeah.
Um, so
True,
so it's
true.
like I think all the pieces it's a machine. Everything's working together.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and that's why this movie received the praise and adoration that it did,
yeah.
for that and for numerous reasons. The other thing that I'm just gonna call out right now,
Sure.
Miles Catton, where have you
Yes.
been?
Yep.
And I love you because you stole this movie from Michael B. Jordan.
He
For
did.
oh my god. Also, what is with the voice? Every
Yeah.
single time I was like, the voice ain't matching the face, but I'm not mad at it, but it's also like I'm not talking just about his singing voice. No, his his
Yeah.
everyday voice. I'm like,
Hmm.
really? That's fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. I do live in the South, and so his voice. I mean, and it just and also Delroy Lindo. I mean, even Michael B. Jordan. I mean, there were just. I felt like I was like when I was watching this film. A lot of times, I felt like I was going back to my youth, hearing like the great uncles and at the cookout, and like it brought back it brought back a lot of like memories, and when they're talking about the catfish. And
Mhm,
I mean, so there were just so many elements of this film that felt authentic. And I think
mhm,
that's another thing that makes this movie work,
yeah,
especially especially the first, in particular, the first half of it. But that it's just that the authenticity, and like you said as well, it's just like I loved what you said. I mean, it did, it was so nice because it was an original story that was told, and so to me that in like the cotton fields and stuff. I mean, I think it's again hearing stories about my grandmother and things my great grandmother told me about her picking cotton, and so there were just so many things in it that you know that I'm only a few we're only a few generations removed from that, but still I still have there was a emotional connection to this film, I think, that also made it work. So that even when it did the turn to more of the other, which I will say I did, I do enjoy the film, but when it did go into the normal the vampire stuff and all those other things, it lost a little bit of momentum for me,
mm,
because I think it's just the first half of it was just so powerful for just the reasons I just talked about here, that when it transitioned over to the back half of the story, it was cool. I enjoyed it, but it just did, it just felt like it just felt like, okay, I'm back to like what I'm back to just the usual rote storytelling of like the scary movie, and but then of course the ending, um, brought it back. Well, there are a couple. Well, the ending with Michael B. With Smoke taking out the clan and all that kind of stuff, it was just like a kick-ass moment.
the
And then
epilogue ending.
the epilogues,
Ending.
yeah, yeah,
No,
they
no,
were,
no.
yeah,
I'm calling that the epilogue ending because
oh
for
yeah,
me,
yeah,
it
yeah,
felt like the movie was over and then all of a sudden you got the KKK showing up and
yeah,
you're like, "Oh, we're still doing this.
yeah.
Okay."
Yeah,
But
yeah,
but yeah, looking at it in terms of the twins,
Hmm.
you got the movie, you got two love stories going on.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense. And I told Will this earlier, but no, this is my first time watching the movie. But when the movie first came out, I did watch the mid-credit scene on TikTok. So I already knew. I already knew, which is another reason why I think the third act is kind of the weakest act, just because
Hmm.
I still want to I still want an explanation of how Mary specifically made it out alive, and didn't go into the sun like everyone else. So there's some things that were not explained fully, but
Yeah.
back to what I was trying to get at is the two love stories. They they definitely foreshadow
Hmm.
ultimately how those two end.
Yeah.
um and the because it makes sense, like,
Hmm.
what, like Mary and Stack, they can't be together because she is too white.
Yeah.
Okay? And she is with a white man now, and that's the only way to keep her safe and everything. But now as vampires, they can be together because they have that
Hmm.
power. So
Hmm.
they sacrificed the sun, and they have immortality and all of that, but they can be together at the end of the
Yeah.
day in
Right.
that tortured state. So it's very interesting. And
It
then
is.
Smoke, having already killed Annie, because that's what she said to do when she got bit,
Hmm.
um, he then gets to basically follow her into the afterlife, where they get to be with their child that they lost, and that was the reason why he left along with his
Yeah.
brother. Like, so I something that the movie marketing did not really explain or showcase, and one of the surprises were those two love stories,
Yeah.
that ran out throughout the movie, and those relationships that and that was more than just Haley Steinfeld.
Yeah.
Okay. um so yeah, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think the two love stories, to your point, with the epilogue ending and the mid credit. Yeah. Yeah, getting that payoff of those stories was a pleasant surprise. Um,
Mhm,
given how given how, like I said, whenever they do have the big showdown with Remick and all that kind of stuff, yeah, I mean, yeah, it had to happen. And yeah, they, and the KKK coming back and having the big shootout and everything. Yeah, it was a kick-ass moment. But it was also, it was the fitting in for Smoke, so that he could, that was, you know, given that that was his way of just getting freedom from this mortal plane and all the things that he was dealing, all basically the 1930s South.
mhm.
Um, and so, so he definitely had his freedom, which is, but and then to your point, like you said, yeah, Mary and Stack are free in some regards, but they're also still imprisoned in this state where they cannot enjoy the sun, and Stack, well, can never, and both, do, lose each other, as far as their relationship. So yeah, so it's, so I guess in Stack's standpoint, I mean, it was kind of a mix. To me, it was maybe a mixed blessing, I guess.
Well, I mean, yes, it's a mixed blessing when you put it that way, but when we see him in the like six 60 years later in
Yeah,
1992 at the end of the
yeah,
movie with Mary,
hmm,
it seems they're doing just fine.
yeah. They're
It's
happy.
just-
They're happy. They can't go. Yeah,
yeah, it doesn't seem like they're tortured. is what I'm
No.
getting at. Like,
Okay. Yeah.
this is a curse. It seems like
Mhm.
they have made peace with it.
Yeah.
Um, and it also seems like suddenly vampires in 92 are not just bloodthirsty, hungry all the time, because I also don't know like how suddenly they are much more demure. I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah. Well, I mean,
know.
yeah, they get, yeah, because they, I guess, whenever they do approach Sammy and they give Sammy the choice, you're right. I mean, they are more chill than because,
It is there's it's not just that they didn't kill Sammy, it's that there were other people that they could
yeah,
have killed,
hmm
and it's just, I don't know. It
maybe,
felt
yeah,
like the way we were introduced to how the vampire hunger worked, like they were
mhm,
insatiable.
yeah,
Okay. And
yeah,
then we go into the future and suddenly they're just like, yeah, we ate earlier.
yeah,
What? I don't
yeah.
understand.
Yeah, but but to that end, to that end, with Sammy and again, given the choice, I mean, I do love how at the end of the day, they offer it to him, and choice was really like another big thing that was um in this film, like, when we first get the start with Sammy and his father, preacher boy. It was, he made a choice to like, with the whole religion, with religion and the whole notion of sin and and all that kind of stuff. Sammy made a choice. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go play in this juke joint. I want to, and then whenever he had a choice later to, for immortality, he's like, you know what, I've had a good life. You know, I'm good with this. And so even when you do get that, in that post credit at the very end, where where we see Sammy singing um "This Little Light of Mine," which was again another like bookend from that they had uh, with the beginning of the film and the end of the film, and he kind of looks up. I mean, it just, we see what I think it to me, it made that moment in the mid-credit payoff whenever we see the choice that he made all those years ago. He may not go on the route that his father wanted him to, as far as what his father envisioned, but Sammy made his own peace with fate, God, religion, whatever you want to call it. And whenever death was upon him, he was like, I've made my decision, and he was at peace with it. At least that's my take on it.
Anything else?
No, I don't think so. I think we covered a lot of ground with this film. I'm sure there's
All
even
right.
more. I mean, there's think pieces that still come out about Sinners, but no, I'm glad we covered it.
All
I've been
right.
really wanting to hear your thoughts on it, so I'm glad you finally watched it.
And all right, that brings us to Peacemaker season 2 episode 3, another Rick up my sleeve. As Peacemaker receives praise as a hero, he uses the alternate dimension to deepen his bond with Harcourt. Meanwhile, Economist faces criticism for the mission's failure. This opens with a flashback in our world to Harcourt and Rick Flag being together, and not Senior, the young one who got killed,
Yep.
murdered by Peacemaker. So so this was not explained to us at all in season 1, correct?
About, oh, as far, no, I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Rick
yeah,
Flag and Harcourt being a thing
nope,
before the Suicide Squad. No.
no,
Okay. And so the reason why Harcourt, it's never been brought up, is because Harcourt supposedly does not know that Peacemaker killed Rick.
yeah, which it seems weird to me because,
Yes.
but what, yeah, but then again, I mean, in the last episode with when Rick Senior wanted to see the file, I guess they have kind of kept what happened in Corto Maltese
And
pretty
with that, I
pretty
call it
tightly.
convenience.
Yeah,
Convenience, because
yeah,
she, throughout season 1, is like the right hand of the general and is in control all this information, and throughout this season, it's like, "Oh, poor me, I got kicked out of Argus, where
hmm
I was somebody and I had a job and I had all this information." And so you have yet to piece together that Peacemaker killed your ex?
See,
And, like, there I
yeah,
don't if they use that, I don't buy it.
yeah,
To me, it's very, very thin. What makes more sense is when I was watching this episode, specifically when Harcourt was having her girl chat with Abadayo.
mhm,
Abadayo, she there was some looks, and you could see that clearly Harcourt is withholding information about why she can't be with Chris, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
I, while watching it, was more thinking, it's because you have yet to tell him that he killed your ex-boyfriend.
yeah, yeah. I took it that way too,
Yeah,
especially.
that's how I
Yeah,
interpreted it.
yeah, yeah. I took it that she knows, especially whenever we think back to the season 1, whenever she first meets Chris at his trailer.
Mhm.
Um, and and maybe at that point she did not know
Maybe at
that
one
Chris,
point she didn't know, but then she
but
realized it. But the
or she
you
found out.
can't I can't, if she never knew, then the character is gone for me.
Yeah. No, I think your point. No, I think in between things are going well with them, and I think you hit it right. She real she got access to the file or whatever, and so when that happened, that's where things went sideways with her and Chris, or at least in Earth One.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and they'll
Um,
probably yeah yeah.
and that will what?
I said, and at some point during over the next 5 episodes, we'll get that'll probably be the most likely explanation.
Yeah, yeah. There has to be, she has to know. I
Yeah.
just I can't buy it, her not knowing that, because I
Mhm.
felt like everyone knew that in season 1. I
Yeah.
don't know why. I just felt like this was
Yeah.
known information, with
hmm
not only that kill, but all of the kills that Peacemaker has done over the years.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess my next challenge for you, Will,
Yeah. hmm
is to talk about your thoughts of this episode and not use the phrase "they are setting the table." Okay? Go
Okay.
ahead.
It's the best dimension ever. What I did say last week, that this episode was going to show that the grass is greener, because in this universe, in Earth 2, uh, Peacemaker it's everything he wanted, and he is a hero. People love him. He has adoration. I mean, just as he's on the peace cycle. He was. I mean, hell. I mean, ladies like pulling out his shirt, showing her boobs. I mean, it was just like everything that that he wanted is there. Um, so yeah, so it makes sense for why he was just like, yeah, every time he could use best dimension ever, and he's got thirst court. It's all everything that Chris needs is there. So, but for me, it's just like, when is the other shoe going to drop?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I I just so I go back and forth. The episode at the end when he's getting the praise and the applause, and
hmm
then Harcourt runs over and hugs him. Like, there was good payoff, okay, for
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's really pissing me off that I feel like we are we're not moving as quickly as I would want, but it's weird to say that, considering these episodes feel like they're 10 minutes long.
Yeah.
Like,
It was.
I'm
I,
it's it's hard for me to wrap my mind around. Like, I can't necessarily say that we're meandering, but I
Mhm.
also feel like we're a little bit we've been stuck in the same place for 3 episodes now, and we just keep moving along, and I don't like this whole first of all, I don't like Eagly being at risk, okay? That's a
Oh yeah,
problem,
yeah,
okay?
that's a big problem. Yeah.
With them hiring Red Saint Wild, who is dressed very culturally inappropriately,
Yes.
very,
Yes.
very, but and
Yeah.
then Rip Jagger as well. Like I and if I however, it was nice to see Michael Rooker.
Yeah.
You knew he was gonna
Yeah.
come up eventually. It was just a
Oh yeah.
matter of time, and they
Yep.
snuck him in there, and yeah, so we're gonna get that showdown, for sure. And and also we could just get some more great lines. We learned some things about my favorite character, a Mr. Adrian Chase. And he apparently knows a lot of things about spiders, but what he does not know is the fact how many eyes they have. He does not know that. But he does
Yeah.
know a lot about spiders.
Yeah. He knows a lot about spiders. Let's see. What was the? Yeah. Yeah. He knows a lot of. Adrian knows a lot about a lot of things
and then
until you.
and yeah, until you really start to quiz him and it's just like,
Yeah.
what the
Yeah.
fuck? And
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's like you knew we were gonna get an episode where Chris was gonna spend majority of the time in the alternate dimension. That was this episode.
Mm,
And I think it's weird because I think what's been happening for me with these 3 episodes is like it feels like okay, Chris is moving forward, nobody else is.
mm,
or or we're having to we have to like kind of stall Chris a little bit so we get our bearings with what's going on with the other characters, but we can't quite move forward because we have to start with these new relationships. I don't know. It just I can't say that they are hitting the ground running at all. And the other thought that I have about this whole pacing issue that I've just been harping on is something that we talk about all the time with the shows, ever since streaming became a thing.
mm,
This season is written as if it is a like, here's 10 episodes, have a good time.
mhm,
So far with these past three episodes, I could have binged this easily and been very satisfied. But having to wait week to week, I'm like, what are we doing here? And I think that's what's bothering me. And I don't
mm,
remember feeling that way during season 1 because I feel like with season 1, it was crafted. I was like fine episode to episode, but now I'm just like, James, you realize that you didn't I think you were writing Superman and you thought you'd apply the same thing, but it's a different format. Okay, this is a TV show.
yeah. See, I disagree. I think I'm okay with still with the weekly because for me it's like allowing things to breathe because I get what you're saying about the pacing. I do. Um, but and I do and one thing you have noted that I think it, it is like taking its time with the supporting characters as far as developing their their stories. Um, I think Earth One Harcourt is, yeah. I mean, yeah. She is stuck in a rut at this point, and it's just, I mean, there's a lot of looking at, there's, I guess, it's the third episode, so it's the morning after the big party, so everybody's like hungover and stuff on Earth One. Um, I guess the Harcourt version on Earth Two. Yeah, so to me, this episode gave us a glimpse into life, you know, in that second dimension, and we learned a lot more about that universe and her character in that universe. And also, I think, to me, what the pacing is doing, especially having Chris and you know, we're seeing again, I mentioned before how this season is really picking up the growth or changing of Chris, as far as he's still shedding some of the hard edges, he's still dealing with the loneliness, he's still dealing with trying to find that sense of belonging and stuff, but but holding up that mirror of you know, basically seeing like the old version of himself. I mean, it basically seems like the Earth 2 version is the season 1 version that we met of Chris, as far as just a kind of a dick and an asshole, and we see in this episode. Earth One Chris is sort of like, no, I don't like those aspects of of my personality. So he's doing things to like, better himself. So that's what I meant by the episode pacing is, at least for me, it's okay because it is allowing those moments to breathe some instead of just binging through that. I don't think it would have if we just went from, all dropped at once.
Yeah. Um, I think it would have been fine all at once, but
Yeah, well, I mean, but
I
you
did.
know,
I for me, like
yeah,
we're not going to convince each other either
no,
way,
no,
and
no,
that's not what
yeah,
this is about.
no, no, no,
But but I guess then the point you just brought up about Chris
yeah,
and his changing. I don't know if and maybe this is just because I didn't do my homework and I didn't rewatch season 1. So, but I don't remember him being, I don't know, like too different than the Chris that we have right now. I really
well,
don't. I don't for some reason. I mean, and maybe that's where my frustration is also a little bit is maybe he has changed. And I'm more like, okay, well, this has been nice, but I'd really like some comedy going on right now.
yeah,
or
yeah. I mean, you're not gonna
or
hear,
some like I understand what they're doing with the whole alternate dimension and it's proving the motivations and like like the whole this the grass is greener, but we all know how that ends, okay?
yeah,
So I don't know. It's just there's been so much buildup and really my whole point about the binge model is because I know Double Toasted in particular, they got screeners for the first 6 episodes, and so
mhm,
they binged it, and they were like raving about this season, and I'm sitting here like episode 3, okay, what was the big deal? Like I get envious though
yeah,
because I think yes, things get to breathe more, but you get to the payoff sooner. And honestly, I don't think that there's so much going on here that things need the amount of breathing that they've been afforded. And that's
right,
my
yeah,
personal preference and taste.
yeah,
It's just
yeah.
that sometimes
That's fair.
it just yeah, it's a bit redundant.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I honestly, yeah, I mean, I think we truly are split on this one, and and like you
Mhm.
said, I mean, I don't, we're not going to convince each other. I mean, this is why this is we love. I will, let the listeners who are listening to us discuss this. I would love to hear folks' take on this point, and I'm sure some will probably agree with you, and some will probably agree with me, um, but I do see the change in how Earth One Chris is, um, and 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 I think where he is trying to better himself and fill that void, because I mean he's still going into that pocket and going to Earth 2. I mean he's still at the end of the day, yeah, it's like best dimension ever, but at some point he's going to realize like, oh yeah, being the hero, which was pretty cool just to see him like be like, you know, we've heard all this, we've heard all these stories about Peacemaker and seeing him in action and stuff, and we got to see it this week, which was really cool. But at the end of the day, is that going to be enough to sustain, to fulfill him? And then also, I did like also just
But
how,
that isn't really the fulfilling thing. The fulfilling moment is when he's having the conversation with his brother at
yeah,
the end.
and yeah, so and
Like,
that, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
that moment, which what's also interesting is we're spending a lot more time with the brother than we have with the father.
hmm
And I just bring that up because that was a very big moment in season 1 when he does kill his dad.
yes,
Um so
yeah,
so there
well,
there's I'm just waiting for them to get to like that aspect of guilt.
hmm
Um because I I think that what James is doing is we're focusing so much on the Justice Gang and the Peacemaker gets accepted as being the hero in this universe and all of that, that we're almost not really focusing more in on that family side and the emotional trauma that is parallel going on in the universe. Like there's a reason why in this universe Chris has his brother, has a good relationship with his father, yet gets addicted to pills. Why is that?
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think there's just some base. It seems with regardless of the dimensions that these characters are in, there are certain, I guess, fundamental aspects of their personalities that are just that are common to each of them. So I think, so where our Chris is, to that point, I think that's to answer your question. I think that's part of what we are seeing here with Earth One Chris, trying to overcome those aspects of his life that, like he did have the abusive father. He did, kill his brother because of his, his father's pushing them to do these fights and that kind of stuff. So maybe, we'll learn, we'll learn about things with the Earth. We've seen the relationship that he had with um Earth 2 Harcourt, where where he was a philanderer, and he messed up a good thing that allowed her to go to the good, to the Jarhead, which was, Rick Flag Jr.
mhm.
So
Yeah, yeah.
um
Which
so
we
I
all
think
saw that coming, but yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I think using Earth 2 Chris is how we'll see our version of Chris get, continue this path of self improvement, which I think is what, at least that's, to me, that's where this storyline is. This show is really exploring is how do you take this effed up hero and and really deconstruct them and make him a better man, and accept the that's where I see where James is going with this. Yeah, no, we got all the other stuff going around too with the Justice League and all that kind of stuff, or Justice Gang. Yeah, those are all atmospherics, but at the core, it's about how Chris, how we get a better version of Chris Smith in Earth One.
All right. Well, on that note, Will, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me on all the socials at Will M Polk, WILLMPOLK.
And you can find me there too at SJ Belmont, SJBelmont. Please follow our crew on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Scene and Nerd on Blue Sky. Friend us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and Threads at Scene_N_Nerd, and visit our website, www.sceneandnerdpodcast.com. But most importantly, rate, follow, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever your podcasts. Good night, Geek Out. You're welcome.